welcome to Balancing the Spectrum. I am your host, Jose. Before diving into today's topic, if you do enjoy my content, if it's helpful, or you would like to share with somebody else, please like, comment, share, and of course, uh, tap on the subscribe button so that you can get notifications when I drop a new episode. I would greatly appreciate that. And the more you comment, the more you like, the more you share, the more we get to flourish this project and build a community, a safe place for all of us. So, earlier today, I was scrolling through this app that is kind of like Whisper. I don't know if y'all know what Whisper was, but basically it was an app that you could anonymously post anything that came to your mind. You could pour out your deepest secrets and it would be anonymous. This app is not Whisper. I think they took Whisper down. But this other app, I was scrolling through it and I saw this post that said, I will do something that I don't like to do just to make somebody else happy. And immediately I thought, it's people pleasing. A lot of us go through people pleasing phases. Some of us go in and out of those phases. Some of us have struggled to get out of that phase. And I keep calling it a phase, but it's really just a struggle, an obstacle that constantly makes us believe that we have to make other people comfortable, because either we're doing it to make them feel good or we're doing it to feel good ourselves, to feel validated, like I'm doing something for somebody else. But apart from people policing, I also thought empathy burnout. And that's what we're going to talk about today is empathy burnout. So at first, it might start out as just people pleasing, but empathy burnout is more intense. You constantly feel the need to be somebody else's comfort and have them rely on you. At first, this may feel good because you think to yourself, I'm helping this person out, but when they start taking you for granted, and a lot of times they will take you for granted, whether it's emotional, mental, physical support, whatever type of support you're giving this person, it could just be through caring gestures, gifts, doing things for them, mowing their lawn, cleaning their house, whatever it may be. And this could be your direct family as well. So, in a lot of cases, the more they rely on you, the more they take you for granted, and the less appreciated you feel, the less validated you feel. You start feeling like what you do isn't enough. And a lot of times this comes from them taking you for granted, and when you don't do it the way you used to or the way that they expect you to do something, Again, no matter what type of support you're giving this person, um, they they tend to tell you that you're not doing things right for them. You are not helpful. You're actually making things tougher. And those are things that have happened to me. So I'm speaking for me. I'm not speaking for everybody, but I am speaking from my own experience. And you're told that maybe you're not worth anything. You're basically nothing. And they make you feel like if you didn't have them in your life, you would be, in fact, nothing. And this builds up inside, and a lot of the times you put more effort into it, and the more effort you put into it, the other person on the receiving end increases their expectation bar. So the more you give, the more they want. And this is difficult for us to get out of. It's a cycle that's difficult to get out of, especially when you have low self-esteem, or low self-esteem is created through that situation that you're in. So in your mind, you start thinking and believing that you're really not worth anything without that person, even though you're the one giving them support. And it could be that they do give you some sort of support, but maybe not necessarily the support or comfort that you need. And basically, you just accept it. You put it in your mind that they're giving you what you deserve. They're giving you what they believe is your value. So if you're putting in 100% and they give you 10%, you actually believe that that's what you deserve. And a lot of emotions get stirred up, and you start with self-doubt, low self-esteem, like I said earlier, and you start telling yourself you're really not the person that somebody needs in their life, because you never do enough, because you are made to believe that you never give enough, even though you're giving more than 100%. A lot of the times that's the case. Time can time can pass on, and you will start to have these emotions inside you just brew, and that's where empathy burnout comes in. Like, empathy burnout is actually an epiphany within yourself that you're giving 100%, 200%, however much you're giving of yourself, without expecting much in return, and feeling undervalued. It's the realization that you're doing too much and you're not being corresponded in the same way. And instead of being a mutual support, that person that you've been helping, supporting, comforting, has now turned into an obstacle. An obstacle in your mind, because everything that they tell you, you have believed. whether it's diminishing your value or making you feel like you're just not a person that's good at doing anything, which is basically the same as being undervalued. So that's that realization, and that's when you start to not care. And when I say you don't care anymore, it's I've done my part, but if you expect me to continue to give you my 100, my 200%, there needs to be some sort of value in return for me. And it sounds very transactional, and it kind of is, but at least in my case, I respond with quality time, emotions, words of affirmation, and in my experience, I've gotten the opposite of that a lot of the time. And it just got to the point where I said, I'm tired and I need to take care of myself. I've been taking care of you instead of taking care of me. And now I feel shitty and I'm not feeling the comfort that I should be feeling. But I have to find a way to give myself that comfort, that support. So in order to do that, I'm not gonna be as supportive anymore. That's when you start building boundaries. Like, yes, I will continue to do this, but only this much. If I'm giving you 300%, I'm gonna lower it down to my 100%. I'm still gonna give you everything I have, everything I'm willing to give without expecting anything in return. And this, at least for me, this showed me that when people keep raising their expectations and then you set the boundary to lower those expectations, they get mad at you. And for one reason or another, you become a villain. You become the bad person. You don't care about me. You don't take care of me. You don't do anything for me anymore. You never do anything that I ask, etc., etc. And a lot of the time, in my experience, at least with friendships, I actually did talk a little about a friendship gone awry and how that person reacted. Um, if my friend comes over and is asking for advice, I'll give it to them wholeheartedly. I'll tell them the truth. And of course, as human beings, we have the tendency to listen to advice but not act upon it. And in my experience, when somebody gives me an advice, I listen to it, I reflect upon it, and a lot of times I found myself saying, I'm not ready for that step just yet. So I don't do it right away. And you're seen as ungrateful because you're not accepting or you're not acting upon that advice just yet. It might take you a process to get to that step. Like me, when I say set boundaries. I know I've said that so many times. For you guys who are listening, it might not be that time to take to make boundaries, to create boundaries, because you don't feel that confidence yet. It's a long process within ourselves, and we have to self reflect and heal all of what we have in order to feel brave enough to create those boundaries. So I don't blame you for not creating boundaries right away, and don't feel bad that you can't create boundaries, or don't feel ashamed that you can't do it. It's not that you can't do it, you're just not ready. You have to heal first, then create your boundaries. But in my friendships, I've given advice, and then they come back, ask for more advice. Usually it's the same advice, and I go about different ways of giving the same advice to them, um, so that they could hear it in different words. Sometimes the right words just click and make sense to us, while other words don't. So that's what I've done, and there has been situations, friendships that don't listen to me, and that's fine. It's their choice. I'm not gonna force them to um, follow my advice or act upon my advice. But what does get on my nerve now, what gets on my nerves is that they constantly come back, and in my experience, it's made me feel like I'm their tissue. They're using me to vent out all their emotions and everything wrong going in their life, and spilling out all these feelings, and me trying to support them constantly. And I've had the time where I'm like, okay, I've given you advice in so many ways to the point that it has become redundant. You only come to me when you want advice. We don't even hang out anymore. That's been my experience. You don't even text me anymore. Like, you've just used me, or I feel like you're using me for that reason, to be your emotional support person. And that's not cool. And when I've expressed this to friends that I've had in the past, the results are always the same. They get mad at me, and they blame me for their bad decisions. They claim that they're bad decisions. I don't tell them that they're bad decisions. They say that they've made bad decisions in their life because of the advice that I've given, but it doesn't make sense because they don't act upon the advice I give them. So that's when I'm made to feel like the bad guy, and it just came to the point where it's like, I don't care. I don't care if you see me as the bad guy in your story. I've tried to be there for you, and I've tried to give you the support you needed when you needed it, and you seemed fine with it at the time, but now you're saying I'm the cause of your problems. So this is a one-way friendship because I'm the one giving you my empathy, my concern, my actions, um, and it just hasn't been a pretty, uh, what could you call it? Ending of a cycle. So when you're in this type of relationship, whether it's romantic, family, friendship, co-workers, whatever it may be, and you're there to support them, and it just becomes a habit. Everything that I said happens. The burnout happens at the end though, when you're just like, I don't care. I don't care. I've been there for you, and there's been times that emotionally I've needed you, but you've always been busy, or you ignore my text, or you ignore my calls. So that friendship, you've obviously made it a one-way street, and the only person driving in that street is me. You're on the side of the curb waiting to be picked up and have me drive you around. Not literally. This is a metaphor. That's how it feels. They're just waiting on the side of the curb to be picked up by you and drive them around to wherever they need to go. Basically, you become their errand person, and that's also a metaphor. Or it could be literal sometimes. Sometimes people will use you as their errand person, and they'll have you do things for them. And when you tell them like, okay, I'm doing everything for you now, I need time for myself to do things for myself because I've lost touch with taking care of myself. They get mad. And like I said before, they start blaming you for things going on in their lives. And it's never a pretty ending. Empathy burnout is just simply setting boundaries when you're feeling emotionally and mentally exhausted. You become so tired to the point that you tell yourself, I can't do this anymore. And it doesn't mean that you're going to cut them out indefinitely. It just means I'm going to lower my percentage of giving that person comfort and support. And whether they accept it or not, if they do accept it, that's great. Like, that's a step forward in their, or from their direction, not in their direction. So they're taking a step forward and acknowledging, I've made you feel this way. I'm sorry, and I need to do more to keep our relationship going because I don't want to lose you. You do have value to me. Recently, I had a conversation with a friend that I know has depression, anxiety, and um, sometimes I think she might have um, BPD, but that's not for me to decide. That's for her doctors to diagnose her with. if she does have it. But this person, I I I text her and I'll be like, "Hey, how are you? How you doing? How you been?" And a lot of the times, I won't get a text back. Not until like 3 weeks later. And by that time, a lot of things may have happened in both of our lives. And I feel like I need to play catch up to the point where I forget about myself. And um, I actually had this conversation with them. And I told them, uh, I feel like you only talk to me when you're not feeling well, or you come over when you have nothing else to do. Maybe you're bored, and it makes me feel like I'm your last option because you let me know at very last minute, and 90% of the time I've been able to say, okay, come over. I'm cool with you coming over, and we can just hang out and talk. Sometimes I do their nails. Um, I've done like spa days for them to make them feel better, to make them feel appreciated because they don't have that type of a support in their life. So that's why they look for it in me. And I'm okay doing that because it makes them feel good. Every time they leave my house, they say, I always feel good. I feel at peace when I come visit you. I can't feel that feeling anywhere else. And in this conversation, I told her that I did feel that way. It made me feel like I was the last resort because maybe they're bored and have nothing else to do. And I get it, like depression, anxiety. I totally get all of that. And I get that a lot of people seal themselves away from society, from family, from friends. I get that. Um, and I used to do the same, to be honest. I used to just seal myself until I realized that if that was being done to me, it makes me feel kind of shitty because it makes me feel like I'm being blocked out by that person that I care for. And I learned that if I'm not feeling okay and I just need time for myself, to let them know, hey, I'm not feeling so great and I need time for myself. I'll get back to you as soon as possible, as soon as I can. And with her, there's been days that I don't feel like replying, and it just comes to my mind, and this realization comes to my mind, and I text them anyway. I text them, hey, I'm not doing okay. I hope you're doing well. But I'll talk to you soon. And I told them that I've done that to let them know that I needed time for myself. And their response was, I just isolate myself from everybody. And I said, I totally get it, but the communication isn't there, so it makes me feel blocked out. I do remember one time I didn't reply when you texted me, and during that time I was actually asleep. And um, when I did wake up, I replied to you, but I never got a message back. And I found out through my aunt that this person was messaging her, telling her that if something was wrong, if I was okay, and if I was blocking her out. But here was my mistake. I didn't address it at the time. I didn't address it when she was thinking that. I could have had a conversation about that with her. That was my mistake. Like, I'm not blocking out. I was just asleep, but I did message you and you didn't reply. Um, and I did bring it up this last conversation that we had, and they said that sometimes they don't feel like texting back. And it made me feel kind of blocked out, kind of put to the side, because knowing this person is always on their phone. They come over. I'm the type of person that if I'm with company or if I'm hanging out with somebody or talking to somebody, whoever it may be, I put my phone upside down. And that to me is me telling you that's a body language that I have that is telling you you have my full attention. But this person is the type of person that will constantly check their phone, and that's totally fine. Sometimes we're talking and they focus on their phone, and the conversation needs to be repeated because they weren't listening. And to me, that wasn't a big deal before, but now I've come to realize that it's become a habit where they're not paying attention to me. I addressed this, and they did apologize and said that it was not their intention to make me feel the way I was feeling blocked out, feeling put to the side, feeling as a last resort. And we came to an agreement. I told them that I would appreciate it if going forward with our friendship, they would put a little bit of effort from their part to have communication. And they agreed. And they also acknowledged that they're not as communicative with me when they are communicative with other people. And so far, the results have been semi-positive. We're still in contact with each other. We're texting, and we're having actual conversations now. It's still about health and stuff, but we're having conversations at least. But anyway, that was me trying to give you an example of my life, of people that actually do acknowledge that they are unintentionally or intentionally causing you empathy burnout. But unfortunately, in most cases, empathy burnout just sticks, and a lot of the time you become a villain in somebody else's story, and that's okay. Once you've been exhausted, once you've been squeezed dry, emotionally and mentally speaking, um, you just don't care. Like, you care about them, but you don't care what they have to say. You don't care what they think or their expectations of you anymore. And it becomes a take it or leave it situation. This is what I have to put on the table. You can take it or you can leave it. A lot of the times they will settle. They will settle with you because they want to keep using you. A lot of the times that's what it is. They want to keep using you. So they will settle for what you have to give. And when they settle, at first you might not notice it, but later on they change their behavior to a seemingly positive one. And after time goes on, you start seeing the same patterns again, and that's when you realize it's happening again, and it's time to put more boundaries. The more boundaries you put, the more attacked that they feel. And it's a very real situation that cannot be avoided. Well, you can try to avoid it, but it will only be doing you harm because you might continue to please them. This is where self-appreciation, self-respect, and self-love come in. The more you do all those things, the more you realize that you have a strong value, you have a high value, not only to yourself and to others, but to the world. Everything that you put out there, you give because you care. And that on its own is it speaks highly of you as a person. When you do things out of love, when you do things because you care for somebody, when you do things out of empathy, when you understand someone and you try to help, it speaks highly of you. Unfortunately, people try to take advantage of that because they know that you'll be there for them. And that's what empathy burnout is. There's no real way of getting over empathy burnout, at least not to my knowledge. Because to my knowledge, the ending point of empathy burnout, as we said earlier, is basically putting up boundaries and saying, take it or leave it. I don't care. So, if you know how to get out of empathy burnout, let me know. The only other thing I could say about ending, quote unquote, ending empathy burnout is to not feel bad that you're not going to support this person any longer. You have to know your self-worth, not feel bad, and accept the choice you made to put up those boundaries. It's not gonna harm them if they feel like it's harmful for them. Then they're not taking in consideration what you're feeling, because helping them out as much as you do might be harmful to you. Now, I'm not saying don't help them at all. That's your choice. But you can still help them on your conditions, on your terms. And just the more you do that, the more you practice boundaries, the more comfortable with yourself you will feel. I've done it, and it does give me a comfortable place. When it comes to empathy burnout, I discovered that my comfort state is based on less anxiety. I used to have really bad anxiety. I mean, I still deal with it, but I know how to deal with it now. I have the tools and I can share those with you. I've been sharing some, but in the past, my anxiety wasn't just based on my trauma, my situation, overthinking my life, my future. It was also overthinking and worrying, that constant worry about somebody else and how they're doing, how they may do in the future, their well being. That was a horrible place to be. It's good that you care for someone and worry about them, but not in your expense. That's what I learned. When it comes to worrying about someone in your expense, um, it's not the best relationship to have. So that's why I learned set boundaries. And when I did that, I discovered that my comfort state was less anxiety. Less anxiety about everyone else, because I had all these thoughts, not just about myself, but about those other people as well. And it would mesh together. And now I worry about people. I care about people in my life, but I'm not gonna overthink it anymore because I know that's not healthy for me. And I also learned that when you do discover your comfort state, whatever it may be, that those people that you worry about, care about, that you give your all to them, some people, not all, but some people will make you feel like you don't deserve their company, their quality time. And I learned that this is a type of narcissism. People use the word narcissist as a joke, or just a trendy word to use. It's not trendy. It's not a joke. If you have that comfort with certain friendships or people around you that you could joke about narcissism, that's cool. But when it comes to a serious situation, it is not a joke, because you are the one that's being affected, not them. They'll make you feel like they're being affected because you're setting boundaries and finding your comfort zone, your comfort state. And they'll make you feel guilty that you are feeling comfortable. Those are the type of people that are narcissistic, and in a lot of cases, people that are narcissistic will tend to put doubt in your mind to try and control you. And I found that the best way to deal with those type of people is to say, all right, you're right, but I'm just not going to do what you expect out of me. I have my own expectations, and that's what I'm going to do. When you tell this to a narcissist, it kind of hurts their ego and is like, fuck, I can't control you anymore. What the fuck do I do? They spiral. I've noticed this. They spiral and they try to take out their frustrations onto you. Instead of just venting, they take it out on you. And of course, this makes you feel shitty, but it comes to a point when you have to say, hey, that's not cool. You're making me feel this way. And I've had people tell me, yeah, it's always about how you feel. And it's never about how I feel. I've responded to this. I care about you. I love you. And I've tried to show you that I do care about your feelings, about your thoughts. And I just don't feel like you value them. You just want to use me as a puppet, so to speak. And when you start saying these things, they'll kind of back off because that's when they realize that you finally opened your eyes, and they'll slowly back off. They'll try to get to control you again, and they will achieve that if you allow it. If you don't, they won't. And the more you don't allow it, the more they back off. Sometimes those people, including if they're your blood family, they will cut you off because they can't control you anymore, and they'll go find somebody else that they are able to control. Narcissism is just funny to me. It doesn't really make sense 100% of the time. It just doesn't make sense to me. Maybe that's because I'm very empathic and care about how people feel, and how I do make them feel. For me, that can be healthy. Well, for me, it can be healthy up to a point where I could say, that's all that I could give of myself to you. And the rest I have to keep for myself. I have to care for myself. Maybe that's why it's kind of funny to me that people who are narcissists feel the need to control you and not accept who you are as a person, but still feel like you have to accept them no matter what. They make you feel like they're the ones that are perfect and have no flaws. And they make you feel like you need them, when in reality you don't. Some situations you might need that person, but it doesn't mean that you're gonna get what you need. Not what you expect, what you need. And I can tell you more about my experience with people who are narcissistic in my life, or who have been in my life and no longer in my life. So there's this specific person that has been the root of most of my anxieties and my fears, my self-doubt, my mom. So as far as I can remember, I started forming memories from 3 years old. And she made me feel loved as a mom should. She made me feel like she was there for me unconditionally. And she taught me to read, she taught me to write. Um, and it's it's thanks to her that I like reading, I like writing. Um, so I won't take away props from her just because she's not in my life anymore. She did that, but also as I grew up, she she did a lot of things. You could call it grooming. She groomed me to believe that she was not happy in the relationship with my dad and that she needed to find love in me. When she first told me that, I was probably 5 or 6 years old. And through conversations that we've had before that, she explained to me what love was, what it felt like, and that she wasn't receiving that emotion from my dad. Um, so she made me think that she wasn't in love with him and that she only stayed to protect me. To protect me and my brothers. But mainly, she told me to protect me. At the time, I didn't know what she needed to protect me from, but because at the time I didn't feel unsafe. I was with my mom and with my dad. But the more she talked to me, she would always tell me that I would always have her unconditional love. And when she started talking to other guys, well, she confided in me. I was a child. And at the time, I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible with as many details as I can. But this story I do want to tell full, like the complete story, because it is my story. But for this episode, I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible. Which I just made the episode longer just by saying this. But she confided in me when I was a kid. She would tell me that if I really loved her, that I wouldn't say anything to anyone, specifically my dad. However, she made me feel like I needed to win her love. So by proving to her that I had her back, she would tell me, "You want to see me happy, right? Because I'm not happy. do you want to see me happy? And we can all be happy when I'm happy. And as a kid, I believed this. I actually believed that's what she wanted. I blame Disney. Disney with their bullshit happy endings. No one has a happy ending. You have happy beginnings, but not happy endings. And when I say happy endings, I am referring to true love, romantic true love that Disney displays. So you're telling a kid about true love and they're gonna believe you. So she was saying that if I really loved her, I wouldn't say anything. But however, my brother, um, he would actually observe and notice things. He was, well, he is 4 years younger than me. So if he was 3 or 4 at the time, I was around 7 or 8. And he would notice things and he would say them. He would tell my dad, Mom saw a guy and started talking to a guy at Walmart or at whatever place. And she would say that he was lying and she would use me to back her story up. And I'd be like, no, there was no guy. Mind you, I'm a kid and I'm doing what my mom told me was the right thing to do. And I've asked myself, why didn't why didn't I think of my dad's feelings at the time? And the only answer that I found is I didn't spend a lot of communicative time with him. I would spend time with him, go with him, places, to the store, or, just hang out with him, I guess. But we never actually had that communication that my mom gave me. And she made me believe that my dad didn't love me and that he preferred to work over spend quality time with us, and that he favored money instead of us. So she told me this when I was very young, and she repeated this to me uh, every chance she got. She would tell me that my dad didn't love me. So over time, I would try to get close to my dad, but when it was after work, of course, he was tired and he wanted to be left alone to rest. So, as a kid, with that seed implanted in my mind already, that doubt, does my dad love me or not? I felt rejected. Even though he was just like, let me rest, I felt rejected. And when it came to like homework, I would ask my dad for help. He would say, no, like, I don't know how to do that. Or there would be rare times that he would try to help me and he wouldn't really explain it. So he would get frustrated that I didn't get what the information was. That he was giving me, the information he was giving me with homework. Specifically math. Like, I remember multiplication. The way I learned multiplication was through my mom. yes, there was screaming, there was hitting, there was, um, I believe, a spray bottle, if I remember correctly, and she would use her shoe and slap it on the table. So she would use fear tactics as her form of teaching. Whereas my dad was like, "You don't get it, that's on you. I have other things to do." Or at least that's how it made me feel as a kid. And yeah, so I would cover up things that my mom did, such as talk on the phone or talk on the computer with different guys. It wasn't just one guy, it was different guys. And over time, um, it caused a drift between me and my dad to the point where I was yelling at him. And mind you, I was 8, 9, 10 years old. I was yelling at him, "You hate us, you don't want to be with us, you prefer money and you prefer your job over family." And those were things that my mom implanted in my mind. And it was in her favor because I would cover for her. I would feel this sense of love, quote unquote love, with my mom because she had the communication to talk to me, um, talk to me about love and what she was doing, confiding in me, and I felt a connection. At the time, I wasn't aware I was being used, but there was that sense of connection, which people who are narcissistic, they they play with your emotions, they play with your mind. That's what my mom did. And a lot of the time when I was little, I did feel closer to her, and I knew that there was an attraction towards men since a young age. And I also knew, um, well, I had the sense, but I didn't know how to put it in words, that my gender was not what was seen at as normal at the time. It was I didn't identify with the biological sex that I was assigned. Um, and sometimes I would think my mom will get me. My mom is the one that's going to comprehend my thoughts, my feelings. She's going to understand me. But for the longest time, I didn't say anything because I would hear comments in the family here and there, and they were very hateful towards the LGBTQ community. So I didn't say anything. When I was 13, my dad gifted me a laptop. I would use it for homework mostly. And yeah, I would use it for games here and there, but I got curious and I started looking up guys kissing, and it went from pictures to videos. And, um, well, my mom looked through my history and she asked me, and this is when I was 13, the first time she asked me if I liked guys. And I said no. She asked me, "Why are there pictures of guys kissing and videos um, in your computer history?" And I said they were pop ups. That's all I said. That's all I could come up with. And every year since then, she would have a conversation with me out of nowhere. Um, it would just, it would feel like it was out of nowhere. I don't know if she noticed some things that I didn't at the time, but she would have this conversation, and it was the same conversation every year for the next 3 years. So from 13 to 16 years old, she would tell me, I love you unconditionally, and if you ever if you ever decide that you like man, it's okay. I will love you anyway. And your dad will not. Your dad's not going to accept you for liking guys. So that seeped into my mind as well. And me and my dad already had a drift between us. So a further drift kind of scared me as well. But throughout the years, from probably 8 to 16 years old, I covered for my mom for a lot of her cheating. And there was a lot of guys, yep. And the common denominator between these guys were money. She was interested in the money that they earned. Mind you, my dad earned a good living, but at the time, but she wanted more. She wanted more money. She wanted guys who had their own companies, or that they were starting up companies or businesses. That's the type of guys that she would look into and have affairs with. And it wasn't until, I want to say 2010. Yeah, 2010. I was a sophomore, and she met this guy. She's still with him, as far as I know. So she met this guy online, and we were going to move away. She asked me if I wanted to move with them, and at the time, obviously, I said yes, because I didn't feel a connection with my dad, and I felt it with my mom. I actually felt rejected or neglected, not rejected. I felt neglected by my dad, but I was the one to do the rejection to my dad. So I felt neglected by him, but I rejected him whenever he tried to put in some effort into our relationship. So I said yes, and we ended up not moving because he had different plans, and it interfered with the timeline. So she told my dad that she had a lover, and that they were going to live together, but her plans to move in with him got ruined, so she had no place to go. My dad allowed her to stay with us, and in 2011, January 2nd, I came out and she disowned me. So I thought it was going to be the other way around because she spoke to me every year, same conversation. Um, if it turns out that you do like guys, I will accept you unconditionally because you have my unconditional love. Turns out that was all BS. And my dad was the one to accept me. I remember him standing up, giving me a hug, a kiss on the cheek, and saying, I accept you for who you are, while my mom said, you need God. And for a long time, I was angry. From the age of 16 to 22, that's 6 years, there was a lot of bottled anger within me. And it made me feel used, abandoned, stupid, because I couldn't believe that she did that to me after me being supportive. And even though her decisions were wrong, at the time when I was young, including when I was 16, I thought it was the right decision because she would always say she wasn't happy and she was looking for true love. So I wanted her to be happy. I wanted her to find her true love. But that didn't work out, and I'm glad it didn't because I learned a lot. In those 6 years, I learned a lot about myself, and I forgave her. I did the child work. I did the shadow work, whatever you want to call it. I did all of that, healed my trauma from my mom disowning me, and all of a sudden, that anger was gone. I'm not angry at her anymore. And actually, I have journals of poems that I read them now and I laugh because they're so angry towards her. And while my dad accepted me as I am, I know that when I was younger, I hurt him because I rejected him, and I would yell at him and fight with him, repeating the things my mom said, that he didn't love us and he wanted, or he preferred his job over family. So I know I hurt my dad a lot, and I've forgiven myself for that. I've had conversations with him about it, but it seems like he still has a hurt feeling that he's unable to heal. And I've tried to help, but one can only do so much for somebody else. It's up to them to actually want to heal. And it might sound like an excuse to most people, I don't know. But I was a kid, and I was groomed and brainwashed into thinking the way my mom saw things. So I didn't hurt him intentionally. I hurt him because of the things that my mom led me to believe were true, which turns out wasn't true at all. She was the one doing the separating that whole time. And so yeah, I came out, she disowned me, my dad let her stay with us, and she tried to kick me out 3 or 4 times, and my dad didn't allow it. The last time she got kicked out by my dad, said, you have somebody else, and you need to respect my house, leave. Um, and I remember him defending me a lot and fighting with her because he was right. Um, she no longer had the right to stay in his house, um, and still do a lot of malicious things. It wasn't just towards me, it was towards everybody in the household, including my dad and my brothers. Um, she just did a lot of malicious things. So she left. She stayed with a friend for like almost a year before she actually moved with her lover. And between that time, I remember there was a time where my dad wanted to help me and her heal. And we talked, and she's like, I get it now, and I accept you for who you are, and you're always going to be my son. You're going to have my unconditional love. And those words were already ingrained in my mind, so they felt familiar. And sometimes what feels familiar to you is comfortable, makes you feel comfortable, even if it is negative or toxic, because that's all you know, so it feels comfortable. So that's how I felt. I felt comfortable. It was a familiar feeling. And she started making jokes here and there. She knew how to make me laugh. Like she said, "Oh, you have the best of both worlds." I'm proud to say that about my son. And as she started seeing that I was laughing and warming up to her again, she goes, "You can come live with me, and um, we can tell your dad to buy you a car, buy you a new cell phone, buy you a new laptop, buy you anything you need, and you can come visit him with the car that he's going to buy you anytime you want." And that's when I yelled for my dad, and these are the words that I said. I said, "Dad." Oh, before I tell you, so my dad's the one that convinced me to talk to her to try and heal. I didn't want to, but my dad convinced me. But anyway, so what I said was, "Dad, this bitch, I told you she wasn't going to change. She hasn't changed, and she never will. That's all she wants from you. That's all she wants from us." And I was referring to the material things, more money. She was saying that my dad could send me uh, a an allowance every week. So all she wanted was money. And I, since that moment on, there was a lot of more anger that I bottled up, but I got rid of it when I was 22. Like I said, I did the work, and I healed myself. I forgave myself for a lot of things I did to my dad, a lot of things that I said to him that made him feel rejected. And I forgave my mom, like within me at first. Within me, I forgave her for disowning me, for trying to kick me out, for doing all those malicious things, for trying to use me, for actually using me when I was a kid and brainwashing me into thinking the way that she saw fit, the way that was convenient for her. I forgave her for all of that. And when it came to forgiving her in person, it actually took a lot of courage on my part because I would see her and I would feel anger, but I knew I had to have that conversation so that anger could completely disappear. I had that conversation. I told her I forgave her. She laughed at me, said that I was the one that needed to be forgiven by her because I'm the one that hurt her. And that to me didn't make sense. And I said, you know what? I said what I said, and you are forgiven. That's all we need to talk about. If if that's all we need to talk about, I think the conversation's done. And she got angry. I walked away. And from that moment on, every time I have seen her, I don't see her often, and I really don't talk to her at all. Um, I don't have a connection with her at all. But when I have seen her, uh, I don't feel anger. I actually feel nothing. Like, yeah, I might remember the things that she did, but they don't hurt me anymore because that's in the past. I learned to let it go. And that's my experience with a narcissistic person. And living your life like that, especially from childhood to your teenage years and even your adulthood, um, living with that mentality of my mom taught me how to think, how to behave. Um, she used a lot of fear tactics, especially when it came to behavior. I was an opinionated person, but she smacked that out of me. I was scared to voice my opinion. The only things I could voice my opinion on were opinions that she agreed with. So, she did use fear mongering to control not just me, my brothers as well. Um, and I I let that go now. She's not in my life. It doesn't affect me. I learned to think for myself. I learned to form my own opinions. And I learned to define what's ethical for me, not what's ethical for somebody else, but what's ethical for me. And um, some people might agree, some might not. Like, just based on this an example, my mom having affairs. Um, if you're in a committed monogamous relationship, it to me it is not ethical to talk to other people and pursue them romantically. And for other people, they might disagree. They might think it's playful flirting or sex that means nothing. And I don't see it that way. It's just unethical. If you have urges that your partner is not fulfilling, talk to them about it and see if you guys could land on something mutual for the both of you that benefit the both of you. Um, it could be anything really, and I'm not gonna speak specifically on that, but I might in the future. But just to show you guys the effects of living under a narcissistic ruling, my mom, um, I want to read to you guys something out of one of my journals. I'm gonna go see which one I can share with you, just so you guys could see how or hear how angry that teenager was. I'm gonna go look for one right now. So I found a couple. By couple, I literally mean two. Um, I know I had more written down. I don't know. I can't seem to find the journal that they're supposed to be in because I'm missing a lot of writing that I did from the years 2011 to 2012. But the ones I did find, one of them is in English, one of them is in Spanish. I will read them both. So, at this point, I had done some healing. Not completely, because I was still angry, but what I have written down from that year, 2014, doesn't sound as angry as the earlier ones. The earlier ones, I can remember there was a lot of cursing and just a lot of anger directed towards my mom. But let's read these, and um, yeah, we'll you could hear the tone of how I was writing and that there was some healing. 2014, so September 27th, 2014. So this is 3 years after I came out. And by that time, I was 19 now. So, okay, English first. It's so sad to see you lying there treating us this way. Your own children like we're some type of game. Where's my loving mother that you used to be, or that I thought you were? 3 years gone by, and I look back, you only used us as excuses and trophies, as if that would help your cause. Deny as much as you want, but remember you told me some of your secrets. You said you wanted happiness, a better life, and I supported that. But when I told you who I really was, your perfect son became, or, but when I told you who I really was, your perfect son came crumbling down, and then you turned your back. Then I realized who you were, a sociopath. You like using people to your convenience, and when you're done, you toss them like trash. So tell me why, mother, if you found your happiness, why do you continue to make our lives a living hell? Riddle me that, then we'll be able to talk. So, you can hear that there's a lot of hurt in this version of me and this kid. You can hear that there was a transition period, to put it that way, a transition period of healing. I wasn't as angry as I was in the earlier years, 2011 to 2012. Those were like really angry years for me, and I couldn't find those writings. But you can definitely hear that there was still a lot of hurt. And in the Spanish version, well, it's not the same. It doesn't say the same thing. But the Spanish version that I wrote, or the Spanish one that I wrote next to it, was actually written like a week later, because it says October 4th, 2014. This one, you can hear the hurt and you could hear the anger, but it is in Spanish. So if you know Spanish, great. If you don't, well, I don't know how to put subtitles or something on a podcast. So here we go. Desde chiquito, caso te hacía, escondiendo tus secretos por tu disque felicidad. Era tu preciado, pero palabras dichas y sentimientos dañados. Yo pensaba que eras mi amiga de verdad hasta esa noche que te dije soy bisexual. Desde entonces me tratabas como mierda. Todo iba a mi contra, pero me vale porque aprendí que mi papá no es el enemigo como lo hacías ver. Luego te largaste y por mucho tiempo no supe de ti. Y ni quiero saber porque cada vez que te veo quieres falsas reconciliaciones. Nomás te hago saber que perdono tu traición, pero aléjate y no nos hagas más daño y mucho menos dolor. No te mereces el título de madre porque una madre lo que hace es amar y tú lo que haces es dañar. Causas un odio incontrolable y por eso quiero que te alejes y nos dejes vivir. So, in the Spanish one, just like the other one, you can hear the hurt, but the words I use in Spanish are kind of strong, to put it in the best terms possible. They can sound aggressive. That's a better way to put it. They sound aggressive. But again, I was still angry. I was going through the healing process, but it just, there was this disappointment that mixed in with anger, and I didn't know how to deal with it. Writing was my go-to, and at this point I had broken up with my ex almost a year. So that was on October 2014. I broke up with my ex. New Year's Eve 2013. And he used to be the person that was my confidant, my emotional support. He did help me through a lot of things. So I'm grateful for that. And it's probably because of him that I took the step forward into my healing process and was able to finish that process. Yes, I am aware. Excuse me, hold on. I haven't pressed this, but not all podcasts. But give me a second. Okay, sorry. But yeah, I took the step forward to go through that healing process, and I have a lot to heal still, but the things that I do have to heal don't have triggering emotions attached to them like they did before. When I say triggering emotions, I do mean the guilt, the shame, the anger, the sadness, all those emotions that can be very triggering, the abandonment, feeling alone, feeling lonely when you're not alone. Like all those feelings, I know they're still there and I need to heal them. They've entered the scarring process, but The scar still needs to heal. The wound is no longer open, and I'm not allowing them to be. So, yeah, this is a journey that is still ongoing, and maybe it never ends. You just learn to cope through the different mediums, and you have tools that you can work with and that help you in the healing process. Um, but yeah, that's what we had as a conversation topic today. We started with empathy burnout and went into narcissism and how it affects us. But I mean, it's just different emotions going in at the same time or trying to come out at the same time, but you're swallowing them so they go in deeper. And it's just, do I do this? Do I do that? And it could lead to a lot of things. I actually started smoking cigarettes because of that anxiety that I felt. And I started smoking when I was like 17. I was so angry, and it led to bad decisions. I still smoke. I've tried to quit, but that's still something I have to work with or work on. Um, but yeah, a lot of feelings that blend together. You're accountable for yourself, your emotions. You can't control how other people think or what opinions they have or their actions, but you can control your own and stand by your opinions and your actions, even if they are negative. Own it. Own your negative actions, because that is taking accountability. Like, yeah, I fucked up. I harmed you. I didn't do the right thing, and I'm sorry that I made you feel so and so, and I want to make amends. I want to do better. If you don't want to have a relationship with me, that's totally fine. But I did harm you, and I acknowledge that. Even though in the past I didn't. That's part of your own healing. So it's a lot, and we can continue to talk about this for hours and hours, because there's just so much that goes into this, depending on your situation, depending on how you think, what your behavior's like. Um, yeah, this could go on forever. And actually, if I had somebody to talk to about all this, I want to have people come on so that I could actually have conversations with them, and they could see my perspective and I could see theirs, and we could have this conversation that we could share each other's experiences. And there might be people that won't agree with me and people that I might not agree with, but that's okay as long as you respect, uh, the other person's point of view. It's totally fine. Like, agree to disagree. That being said, I think it's time to say goodbye. But just real quick before I end the podcast, um, please remember to like, comment, and hit the notification button so you're aware when I drop new episodes. And also, if you have questions, comments, concerns, if you need advice, if you want to open up a conversation, you could contact me through my Insta. It should be in the About Me section. But my Insta is in balancing the spectrum .pod. And my email, if you want to contact me through my email, it is in balancing the spectrum .podcast@gmail.com. So I look forward to hearing from you, and please, everybody, take care. Everybody be well. And remember that we are all living in a spectrum. Until next time, bye.